The 2025 NFL draft class is 1 year into their careers, and in today's video, we will be going back and grading picks 17 through 32 from the 2025 draft. If you were wondering where the video on picks 1 through 16 is, that video was released last week and will be linked at the end. We will be going in reverse order, so we will be starting with the Chiefs' selection of offensive tackle Josh Simmons and finishing with the Bengals' selection of pass rusher Shamar Stewart. These picks will largely be graded off of production, and we will not be factoring other prospects that were on the board at the time. Meaning, we are not going to say the Steelers now have question marks at quarterback and they should have taken Jackson Dart, and you get the point. I did want to preface the breakdown of how we are grading each pick in today's video for clarity, as there is a lot to break down in today's video. Now let's begin. Josh Simmons was the final pick of the first round, and Simmons was a prospect I liked a lot coming out of Ohio State. I've said this before, and I will stand by this, and it's that I truly believe Josh Simmons would have been a New England Patriot with the 4th selection in the 2025 draft had he played out the entire 2024 season with the Buckeyes, and unfortunately never tore his patellar tendon. But in his rookie year with the Chiefs, he played 8 games and looked pretty good when he played. He missed time in the middle of the season due to personal reasons, and eventually suffered a wrist injury in Week 13 against the Cowboys, which prematurely ended his rookie year. And during the time Josh Simmons played in 2025, I thought he looked like a franchise left tackle, and I even had the thought of how did the NFL let the Chiefs of all teams draft Josh Simmons with the 32nd pick. It very much reminded me of the Breaking Bad scene when Jesse says he can't keep getting away with this, meaning he was far too good of a prospect to still be on the board with the 32nd pick in the draft. Based on the 526 snaps he played in his rookie season, I think the Chiefs have their guy, and 1 year later, this is an A+. Jihaad Campbell was the Eagles' first-round pick, and speaking strictly on talent and nothing to do with positional value, I thought Jihaad Campbell was a top 5 player in this class. He is a very good football player, and I thought it showed early in the 2025 season, especially in coverage. Now, there were times where Campbell got moved around in the run game more than you'd like, but I thought he had a really promising rookie season, especially early on. Nakobe Dean missed time at the start of the 25 season, and when he returned, Campbell's snaps were limited as there was a 7-game stretch where he didn't play more than 40 snaps in a game, and because of that, that's going to hurt his numbers relative to what he could have produced in his rookie year. But there were times in his rookie season where I thought he had all the makings of a Pro Bowl linebacker, and for clarity, an actual Pro Bowl linebacker, not one where 15 guys choose not to attend the Pro Bowl, meaning one of the best in the league. I honestly think this is a little more complicated to grade than people may realize, but one thing I will hammer home here is I think he can eventually be an A+ pick, but 1 year later, this is an A-. Maxwell Hairston, the corner from Kentucky, was the Bills' first-round pick, and unfortunately Hairston suffered an LCL sprain in a preseason practice, which forced his NFL debut to get delayed until Week 8 against the Panthers. Hairston ended up playing in 11 games in 2025, and the best way I would describe Hairston's play in his rookie season is exactly that, what you would expect from a first-round corner. There were good plays from him in his rookie season, most notably intercepting 2 passes in the first 3 games of his career, as he had one against the Chiefs and one against the Dolphins, but there were several learning moments too. Even within the Dolphins game in which he had an interception, he allowed a big touchdown to Jalen Waddle, which will happen. Jalen Waddle is Jalen Waddle, and he was going against a corner in his 3rd career start who had played less than 100 career NFL snaps to that point. It should also be noted that veteran Tre'Davious White was playing over him, which can be taken 2 ways. 1, that a veteran corner is playing well, or 2, that the rookie first-round corner is hurt a lot and not playing as good as we'd like him to. Personally, I think Hairston will be a solid starting corner with time, but it should also be noted that he played just 348 snaps in his rookie year, so certainly not the biggest sample size, but based on the sample size we have, 1 year later, this is a B-. And before we continue with draft grades, today's video is sponsored by PrizePicks and my code GFB. We are looking to go 3 for 3 in a lineup in the big game, and it is brought to you by the season-long partner of the channel, PrizePicks. And with our first play in the big game, we are going with Kenneth Walker to score. We all know what happened the last time these teams played when the Seahawks had the ball down inside the 5-yard line, and I think that the Seahawks will do everything they can to prevent that from happening again, and I like Kenneth Walker to score. Rashid Shaheed more than 23.5 receiving yards is the next play, and there's usually somebody in big games that has to step up, and I'd like that player to be Rashid Shaheed. Especially with his speed, 23.5 receiving yards is always in play. The third and final play is Drake May more than half a passing yard. It's pretty pretty simple. If he throws for 1 yard, then the play hits. So that is the lineup for the big game. Always play responsibly, and when you sign up for PrizePicks using code GFB and make your first $5 deposit, PrizePicks will give you $50 in bonus lineups instantly. Once again, that's code GFB when you sign up and make your first $5 deposit. PrizePicks will give you $50 in bonus lineups instantly. Always play responsibly, and a big thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. Josh Conerly, the offensive tackle from Oregon, was the Commanders' first-round pick, and even though the Commanders only had 5 picks in the 2025 NFL Draft, I really love them drafting both Conerly in the first round and corner Trey Amos in the second round. Conerly had one of the toughest starts to an offensive tackle's career imaginable, as he had the Giants pass rush in week 1 of his rookie season, meaning Brian Burns and Abdul Carter, and then played the Micah Parsons-led Packers in week 2, and, well, Micah got him multiple times. I feel like that should have been expected, as Parsons is a Hall of Fame talent going up against a player who was 21 years old in his second career start, also on a short week. But after Conerly allowed 11 pressures in the first 2 weeks, he improved big time as the season went on. Washington, of course, dealt with an immense amount of injuries throughout the 2025 season, but Conerly actually logged over 1,000 snaps, and despite all of the noise around this team, you could see him improving week after week. With Conerly's background heading into his rookie year, I thought he may have more growing pains than other players and eventually become a good player, and it looks like that's what's happening in real time. A B- grade. Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle from Ohio State, was the Lions' first-round pick, and one of the biggest things that needed to be hammered home with the selection of Tyleik Williams is context. Tyleik is a 6'3", near 330-pound defensive tackle, and he is more of a run-stuffing defensive tackle than a pass-rushing defensive tackle, meaning you would not confuse him with the 6'1", 285-pound Aaron Donald. Their playing styles are drastically different, and within the context of the Lions' selection of Tyleik Williams, the Lions did not ask him to be Ndamukong Suh in year 1. There were 4 interior defensive linemen on the Lions who played over 400 snaps in 2025, and naturally that's going to limit his impact on the stat sheet. So it shouldn't be a surprise that a rookie defensive lineman who played 446 defensive snaps in his rookie year had 19 pressures, 18 total tackles, and 1 sack. But the run defense was noticeably better when Tyleik found his groove midway through the 2025 season, and I think at minimum the Lions should have a good run-stuffing defensive tackle along their defensive line for the next few years. The stat sheet impact will not be a lot, but I don't think this was a bad pick. A C+ grade with it expected to go up. Malachi Starks was the Ravens' first-round pick, and when this pick was made, I thought this was a classic Ravens pick, and I mean that in the most complimentary way possible. Malachi was a really good safety prospect who somehow fell to the 27th pick in the draft, where the Ravens were happy to take him near the end of the first round. Now, for as good of a prospect as Malachi Starks was, he didn't play too well at the beginning of his rookie season, and there were a lot of Ravens fans concerned with this selection really until the Miami game, in which he had his first career interception. But I think there's a lot of promise with Malachi Starks entering year 2 for a couple of reasons. He is a Raven in the sense of he loves tough, physical football. He's not afraid to do the dirty work, and he's not afraid to hit somebody in the run game. He was also 21 years old for a lot of his rookie season, and he was also in a defense that was coached by Zach Orr that, well, if you're a Ravens fan, feel free to comment how you feel about the defensive play calling from this past year. Translation, Malachi was not optimized for success in his rookie season. I think there is room for improvement in consistently tackling the ball carrier, as he missed 13% of his tackles in year 1, but with the back half of the 2025 season he had, I think there's a good foundation for 2026 and beyond. A B+ grade. James Pierce Jr. of the Falcons is up, and I've said it before and I'll continue to say it. I did not like the trade value that it required to go up and get him because of the future first-round pick. I thought there was a good chance that the Falcons wouldn't have the best season in 2025, and that there was a chance Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris would get fired if they didn't have a great season, and they did. And the part that I will also repeat for Falcons fans is that I was wrong about the idea of trading up for James Pierce. This team had not had a pass rush in several years, and now they have a pass rush led by James Pierce and also the 15th overall pick Jalen Walker. And in James Pierce's rookie season, he had 16 quarterback hits and 10.5 sacks and turned 22 years old in October. And while I did not agree with the process of how they got James Pierce, this pick is well worth it 1 year later. The Falcons' pass rush for, well, again, really close to a decade was bad, and they finally did something about it. Pierce finished the year with 45 pressers, which was second in the class only behind the third overall pick Abdul Carter, and there are a lot of reasons to get excited about the future of the Atlanta Falcons. They drafted James Pierce, Jalen Walker, and Xavier Watts in the 2025 draft, and they are big winners from this class 1 year into their careers. And 1 year later, the James Pierce grade is an A+. Jackson Dart was the second quarterback taken in the 2025 draft, and when this pick was made, I was really happy for Jackson Dart, of course, as he got to live out his childhood dream of being a first-round pick, and Giants fans finally had something to believe in. But the one concern I had in the back of my head was that Brian Daboll was on the hot seat entering the 25 season, and that he would be fired either during the middle of the year or at season's end, and as we know, he was fired during the 2025 season. I was worried that he wouldn't show enough in his rookie year, and that it could potentially be a bad situation as early as his second season. But 1 year later, that's not the case at all. Dart threw 15 touchdowns to 5 interceptions and had an additional 487 rushing yards, as well as 9 rushing touchdowns. And what was also unfortunate for Jackson specifically was Malik Neighbors tore his ACL, and Cam Scadaboo also had a season-ending injury, so for as much as we got to see from Jackson Dart, I really think we are just scratching the surface. I also think relative to expectations he had entering the 25 season, that he exceeded all expectations and that he looks like a future franchise quarterback. And a 25 total touchdown season in which you only play 14 games and have a not great supporting cast too, well, this one's easy to me, an A+ grade. Donovan Jackson was the Vikings' first-round pick, and I really like Donovan Jackson as a prospect because this was a player who had guard and tackle versatility as he took over for Josh Simmons during their final year at Ohio State when Simmons went down with a season-ending injury. Fortunately, Donovan Jackson didn't have to play left tackle in his rookie season and stayed at guard when he played in his rookie year, and he did a good job all things considered. It was revealed after the year that Jackson played most of his rookie season with a broken wrist from teammate and Pro Bowl tackle Brian O'Neill, and one of the things he highlighted within Donovan's rookie season was how much adversity he went through and how he played on a hard cast for the rest of the year on his hand. Obviously, the Vikings had a long year, and a lot of it was due to the quarterback play, which was certainly a season of quarterback play, but Donovan Jackson had far more good tape than bad tape. He certainly had a few welcome to the NFL moments, as most linemen do on both sides of the ball, but only allowed 2 sacks on nearly 500 pass blocking attempts. I really think the Vikings have their left guard at the future, and 1 year later, this is a B+. Matthew Golden was the Packers' first-round pick, and with the selection of Golden, he became the first receiver selected in the first round by Green Bay since Javon Walker in 2002. Unfortunately, Matthew Golden did not have a great rookie season statistically, as he finished the year with just 361 yards and no receiving touchdowns in the regular season. Positively, he did have 84 yards and a touchdown against the Bears in the wildcard round, which I think should count for something, but I don't think Golden is destined to be a draft bust the way some people want to make him out to be 1 year later. The one thing I would push back on with this pick has more to do with Matt LaFleur than Matthew Golden, and it's that giving your first-round receiver 44 targets over the course of his rookie season simply is not good asset allocation of the pick that was used on Golden. I know some people probably want to hear me say as a Vikings fan that this was a horrible pick and that they could have drafted a much better player, but I don't think that's really the case. I mean, I did think Luther Burden was a better prospect than Golden, but I don't think Golden is destined to be a draft bust, and I also think this will be a different conversation next year. But for now, this grade is a C. Omarion Hampton was the second running back selected in the first round of the 2025 draft, and unfortunately, Omarion only played 9 games in his rookie year. He suffered an ankle injury in Week 5 against Washington, which kept him out until Week 14 against Philly, and in his rookie year he had 545 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, along with 192 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Omarion is a little difficult to grade because if you take what he was on pace for, based on the 9 games he played in the regular season, he was on pace for nearly 1,400 total yards, along with 10 total touchdowns, which is a really solid season for a rookie running back. And remember, he was drafted at number 22 overall, not in the top 5 where he was expected to be a top 5 running back right out of the gate. Also, we bring this up with Justin Herbert a lot in terms of their offensive line being horrendous in 2025 and also very injury-riddled, but that inevitably affected Omarion Hampton too. This is a difficult pick to grade because I think he is an A or even A+ level talent relative relative to where he was selected, and if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football and can acquire him, I would highly recommend doing so because he is that good of a player. It just wasn't in the cards for him in 2025. And ultimately, 1 year later, based on the time he played, we give this an A-. Derek Harmon of the Pittsburgh Steelers is up, and when you look at the raw numbers from his rookie season, you'll see that he finished the year with 27 total tackles in 12 games, with 5 quarterback hits and a single tackle for loss. And you may think that's not impressive. And if you were wondering, he also had 22 pressures as a rookie, which ranked 11th for the 2025 class. We all know the Steelers season ended the way that it did, and with all of the attention elsewhere, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Mike Tomlin stepping down and Mike McCarthy becoming the team's next head coach, you may think, great, the Steelers drafted a big-bodied player who has very minimal impact. But the biggest compliment I could give Derek Harmon, especially as a rookie defensive lineman, is you could tell he wasn't on the field when he missed 5 games. He missed 5 games over the course of the 25 season, and the Steelers' run defense was atrocious without him. This was during the stretch where Buffalo and Baltimore each ran for over 200 yards for reference. And even in the scenario Cam Hayward retires, I like the future of this team's defensive line with Harmon, Keanu Benton, and Y.A. Black. The stats may not be there for Harmon, but he had a big presence when he was on the field, and 1 year later, this is a B+. Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas, was the Broncos' first-round pick, and a lot of context is needed around this selection. He only played 335 total snaps in his rookie year and had 1 interception as a first-round corner. But Jahdae Barron is primarily a slot corner, and the Broncos didn't draft Jahdae Barron to be a lockdown corner from day one. They didn't draft him to have back-to-back Defensive Players of the Year with Pat Surtain in 2024 and Jahdae Barron winning it in his rookie year, meaning the expectations for Barron were a lot different than other first-round corners over the past few years, and that part has to be noted. The Broncos and Sean Payton have also brought their rookies along slowly over the past few years, with some exceptions here and there, most notably Bo Nix, of course, and they truly try and develop their players, and that's a great thing. It's not a coincidence Sean Payton has had the success he's had as an NFL coach. The only pushback I think would be warranted here is I don't know the role Jahdae Barron will have with Jaquan McMillan on the roster, and that's admittedly a more complex conversation, but also plays a big part as to why Barron didn't play that much as a rookie. I thought he was fine when he played, and based on how he played, I would give this a B, though I'd prefer to go incomplete because he had 0 games with more than 40 snaps, which was also by design. Emeka Egbuka was the Bucs' first-round pick and was the second receiver taken in the 2025 draft, and in the first 9 games of his career, Egbuka came out of the gates red hot. He had 677 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns in the first 9 games of his career, and at that point, was on pace for over 1,275 yards and 11 receiving touchdowns. And at that point, he was the clear runaway favorite for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, and there was even a point in the 25 season where Baker Mayfield was in MVP conversations, and the Bucs were in conversations about going to the NFC Championship game, especially after they beat the Seahawks in Week 5 in Seattle with a 38-35 victory. Egbuka had 7 catches for 163 yards and a touchdown in that game, and both the present and future for Egbuka and the Bucs looked extremely bright. But in the final 8 games of Egbuka's rookie season, he had just 23 catches for 261 yards on 53 targets for a catch percentage of just 45%. It was a very long second half of the season for Egbuka and the Buccaneers, and I think it should also be noted, Baker Mayfield was not 100% during this time period, but for Egbuka to go from having 677 yards and 6 touchdowns in the first 9 games of his rookie year to finishing with less than 1,000 yards and not having a touchdown in the final 2 months of the year, well, that's not good. I still like Emeka Egbuka a lot, but 1 year later, this is an A. Gray Zabel of the Seattle Seahawks is up, and the Seahawks have been one of the most successful franchises in the NFL over the past 15 years, but one thing that they have not had regularly, and this may surprise some people due to how good of a team they have been, is truly great offensive line play. And when the Seahawks drafted Gray Zabel, I love this pick because it was a really good football player with a high floor. And technically nobody is bust-proof, as Andrew Luck could have been a draft bust, but I felt really confident that Gray Zabel would be at minimum an average starter for the Seahawks throughout the duration of his rookie contract. And in his first year with the Seahawks, they are going to the Super Bowl, and he has all the makings of a guy that will be the starting left guard for the next 4 to 5 years, barring injury of course. He's a really high IQ player that, despite being a little light for an NFL guard, held up in year 1. And if he held up in year 1 at guard, despite being just over 300 pounds, then I fully expect him to be even better in year 2. And one thing I would heavily emphasize with this pick is making the transition from North Dakota State to the NFL, especially along the interior offensive line, is a lot more difficult than Gray Zabel made it look. John Schneider had a tremendous draft in 2025, and it started with the selection of Gray Zabel, and 1 year later, this is an A+. Shamar Stewart was the Bengals' first-round pick last year, and, well, it was a rough first year for several reasons. There was a huge contract dispute before his rookie season started, and Shamar eventually left minicamp early. Eventually, Stewart signed his contract and was the last first-round pick of the 2025 NFL Draft to do so. From a football standpoint, I was lower on Stewart than the consensus, as I thought he was a project player, and didn't think he played anywhere close to what he tested at the Combine athleticism-wise. I didn't think he was bad or undrafted caliber by any means, I just wouldn't have drafted him with the 17th overall pick. And in his rookie year, he had 13 pressures in 8 games and 11 total tackles. Now, I don't want the Shamar Stewart to be a sole dump on him as a player, even though it was underwhelming, but I do want to point out that he tore his PCL in a game against the Bears and came back 7 weeks later against the Dolphins. He also just turned 22 years old in November, and with how good of an athlete he was coming out of college, well, it's on him and the Bengals coaching staff to maximize the talent he has to become a good NFL player. But for how bad of a situation this was last summer, it didn't really get better throughout the 2025 season, and unfortunately, 1 year later, this is an F. I hope you enjoyed today's draft grades video, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe, as a football will appear when you like the video, and we are also closing in at 250,000 subscribers. Let me know any grades you disagree with down below in the comments, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.